Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am so glad you're joining me today because we're diving into what is arguably the most urgent, fast-moving challenge in engineering right now. We're going to do a complete deep dive into the architectural blueprint you need to tame unmanaged generative AI sprawl. Seriously, if you're feeling like model usage in your organization is starting to look a bit like the Wild West, you are absolutely not alone. Today, we're going to break down exactly how you can build a secure, fully governed 2026 tech stack that puts you right back in the driver's seat. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's our roadmap. We'll start with the AI pricing shock, move into the shadow data estate, and then we'll build out the solution layer by layer. So the model gateway, observability, safe retrieval, evaluation, and finally, that 2026 reference deck. Part 1, the AI pricing shock and a divergence in philosophies. So, flashback to the start of 2025. DeepSeek lands and just drastically drops inference prices. And this forced enterprises everywhere to ask, if this is the new floor for AI, what exactly are we paying a premium for? This pricing shock really created two divergent market philosophies. Over in the West, the trajectory heavily leans into controlled access. Think hyperscalers, strict productization, seat licenses, and big spending commitments. But on the flip side, the Eastern trajectory is totally ecosystem-driven. They're focusing on open weights that you can deploy literally anywhere. And while that plummets the barrier to adoption, it also completely drops the barrier to unmanaged sprawl right inside your own company. Which leads us to a really critical realization. Model usage is becoming a data flow you cannot see. Because capability is just so insanely cheap and accessible now, you stop asking which single model you're going to use. You just don't. Instead, you start running a totally distributed system of a bunch of models. A reasoning model over here, a super fast local model over there. And the moment that happens, Portfolio AI officially stops being some cool AI research project and it becomes a massive data engineering problem. Right, so that brings us to part 2, the shadow data estate and the chaos happening in the control plane. Let's be real for a second. If your usage data, meaning your prompts, your retrieval contexts, your tool calls, if all of that is just living in random vendor dashboards instead of your own governed platform, you're already building what we call a shadow data estate. This is highly sensitive enterprise data, and it's just flowing through completely untracked channels simply because inference is cheap enough for your teams to experiment totally under the radar. Now, what's really fascinating here is the hidden mechanism behind this failure. It actually isn't the models themselves. It's caching. To compress costs, teams are routing to cheap endpoints and using aggressive discount triggers for cache prompts. Makes total sense, right? But if your underlying documents change and the cache doesn't catch up, you end up reusing stale context. So suddenly, this innocent little cost optimization turns into a massive correctness bug. You are automatically shipping yesterday's policy as today's truth. Yikes. And this brings us to a pretty hard truth. Systems generally don't fail just because you picked the wrong frontier model. They fail because you literally cannot see what's happening. The first break in real organizations is always observability. Think about it. When finance asks why the bill spiked, or even worse, when legal asks where sensitive customer data went, and you simply cannot answer because those calls are scattered across a dozen different prototypes, yeah, that is exactly when the system breaks. Okay, let's fix it. Part 3, building the model gateway, basically your front door. So the absolute crucial point here is that you need a centralized gateway. If every single team is integrating models directly using just a messy pile of SDKs, you've already lost control. For 2026, the standard is a unified API and routing layer, something like LM, and you sit that securely behind enterprise policy middleware like Envoy Gateway or Kong. And why is this gateway so vital? Well, it's because this is where you enforce the rules that actually matter. The gateway is where you enforce your data classification rules. It's where you dictate exactly which providers are permitted for specific workflows. You execute mandatory logging, handle real-time redaction, and block unauthorized traffic right here. Look, without this centralized control plane, you don't really have an AI platform. You kind of just have hope. Moving on to part 4, observability and safe retrieval. This is all about joining the data plane. The goal for observability here is simple but absolutely vital. You have to establish a stable request ID. Think of it like a tracking number on a package. That ID has to flow completely through your model calls, your retrieval steps, and all the downstream actions. Because if you can't join those dots, you literally cannot govern the system. So the 2026 standard leverages OpenTelemetry for end-to-end traces, Langfuse for debugging and prompt versioning, and Arise Phoenix to really watch that behavior over time. Bottom line, you need to be able to reconstruct any outcome on demand.
And this brilliantly illustrates why your retrieval systems need just as much oversight as the models themselves. As super cheap inference drives up your retrieval volume, you're going to run smack into corpus drift. Now, before AI, a stale document was, just annoying. But today, high-speed ingestion of unowned, stale, or conflicting documents will literally turn your retrieval system into an automated, high-throughput misinformation machine. Nobody wants that.
So to combat this drift, you need a seriously solid retrieval architecture. The 2026 standard utilizes OpenSearch or Elasticsearch for hybrid search at scale. Then you've got PG Vector for simple vector search right inside Postgres, and orchestrators like Llama Index or LangChain to tie it all together. But keep this in mind. These tools only work if you start treating your corpora as critical data products. That means strict owners and real freshness SLAs. All right, part 5, evaluation as continuous integration. We really need to be absolutely clear on this one. If you aren't testing your prompts, your retrieval configurations, and your routing logic in continuous integration before they hit production, you are flying completely blind. I mean, you would never accept shipping untested code anywhere else in your software engineering stack, right? So AI should be no different. For 2026, you're looking at integrating tools like RAGAS for RAG quality assessment, PromptFoo for multimodal regression tests, and DeepEval for developer CI suites. This ensures you can slot models safely without just entirely breaking your apps. Let's move to part 6 and see how this all builds into the 2026 reference stack. What does a sensible portfolio actually look like? Okay, here is your highly opinionated, totally sensible starting portfolio for 2026. You really shouldn't be using one massive model for everything anymore. Instead, you tier it. You use a reasoning tier like a DeepSeek R1 class model, strictly for complex logic and routing steps. Then you push the vast bulk of your requests to a workhorse fleet. Think the Qwen 2.5 family, which gives you that sweet, low latency and high throughput for everyday tasks. And finally, you absolutely maintain a fallback model, specifically a non-Eastern frontier model standing by. Just to be completely clear here, having that fallback model is strictly about operational continuity. It's not about politics at all. It's simply about ensuring your enterprise does not grind to a halt if market conditions, trade regulations, or vendor dependencies just unexpectedly shift on you. Maintaining a diverse mix, both geographically and architecturally, is just smart, resilient engineering, period. So, to summarize our actionable blueprint today, whatever you do, do not start by looking at a vendor rate card. Instead, start with your control plane. Step 1, put literally all your traffic behind a gateway. Step 2, standardize your log formats so you finally have total observability. Step 3, treat those retrieval corpora as strictly governed data products. And step 4, run comprehensive evaluations in CI before you even think about swapping models. Because honestly, the economics of AI are just moving way too fast for bespoke, ad hoc integrations to stay safe. A multi-model portfolio is coming to your enterprise by default, whether you intentionally design it or not. So I'm going to leave you with this one critical question. Can your data platform see, govern, and control the mess before it becomes the way you operate? Think about that. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Get out there, take control of your shadow AI estate today, and we'll see you next time.